Hey friends, welcome to another SafePal community call. I'm Ash, your host for today. It's great to have you here. Joining me are two familiar faces from the SafePal team, our CEO Veronica and our communications lead CJ. Hi guys, and welcome back.
Yeah, awesome to be
Yeah,
here
we
as always.
mhm,
Good to be here.
cool. Cool. We've got plenty to dive into today. So what's the lineup? First, CJ and Veronica and I will take a look back at some of the biggest stories and highlights from the past month and share a few thoughts on what's been happening across the market. Then we'll watch a quick video to recap the progress SafePal has made this month. And to wrap up the SafePal community part, we'll also have a Q&A session as usual to answer three questions selected from our community. And after that, we'll move into our guest speaker session. Today, we're joined by friends from X Stocks and Xter. So this is definitely a great session you don't want to miss. Okay, all right, enough teasing. So let's get started. Well, so our first two stories might seem unrelated, but together they tell a much bigger picture about where the industry is heading. So first, Europe's MiCA regulation. I think that's a topic everyone's talking about. The regulation now taking full effect, and millions of users may need to migrate to a licensed platform. It feels like regulation is no longer just a discussion, but it really becomes a part, the reality, and you can feel it. So, what's your view on impact of MiCA regulations, Veronica? And also looking beyond Europe, and this is a question like from me myself. So, do you think MiCA would become a model for other regions, maybe Asia in the future?
We already see that happening, right? For Japan, for
Mm,
Singapore, for multiple places, for Hong Kong as well. I'm not surprised, and to be honest, I'm not really that sympathetic. To be very straightforward, I'm not very sympathetic to the platforms that didn't prepare. I mean, Mika is not a surprise. The regulation that was announced like years ago, and it's like somebody who know an exam was coming and just didn't prepare enough. So looking at these companies that are scrambling at the last minute, it's a pity for sure. But I actually feel bad about the users because the users they didn't do anything wrong, but
mm,
they are now the ones absorbing the shock waves. So as this moves on, there will be an air gap zone that these users would be forced to seek other platforms, to seek other tools. It's like a tenant being evicted by a landlord without further notice. Uh,
mm,
like not to pitch ourselves, but I genuinely believe this is the moment that exactly why self-custody wallet like us exist and why it's meaningful to own one. So when a centralized platform shut down, lose their license, or like assets are frozen, you are with a self-custody wallet. None of that would none of those losses would apply to your assets. So
mm.
your keys, your money, full stop. So I think that's kind of speaks out louder for non-custodial wallets like us, than ever before. Yeah. So that's my gut feeling. But like really really sorry. And I think European users would need to have a time to struggle to look for the new tools. By the way, we do have a lot of European users, and we are recently
Mm,
also seeing the spike of sales volume of our hardware wallet users there. Yeah.
mm. So maybe it's a moment for uh, DX, probably.
Possible. Yeah, embracing decentralization, 100%. Yeah, so
Cool.
we recently received more queries from users
Mm.
asking to use our products, and sales volume also speaks for that one. So yeah, that's a good sign for us, but still would be a struggling time for those users who are evicted. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, let's move
Yeah, I
on
think
to.
scenarios like that are what make a good case for self custody, right?
Yeah.
Another, I think, often I wouldn't say a slightly overlooked area as well. I think one issue about Mika as well is sort of requires stablecoin regulators like Tether, to put about 30% of their reserves in the banks respectively and all that. And I think Paulo's Ardino's argument was that for Tether, it's not that we don't want to be compliant. Our structure doesn't allow us to be, and makes it dangerous because we have to lock about 30% of our treasury there at all times, and it makes us difficult to move globally. It was an interesting obviously interesting perspective compared to other stablecoin providers that decided to be MiCA compliant. So I think it's also another way of looking at how I would say centralized products, right, have their strengths and weaknesses, and how it benefits you to at least have a portion of the assets itself custody. So there's no one that can just come in and say, hey, because of certain changes in the regulatory landscape now, you have to worry about shifting your assets somewhere else, or else, they'll just be kept on the platform, right? Yeah.
Cool. Our second story is about stablecoins. So Visa, Stripe, and Coinbase have all joined the Open USD initiative, introducing a business model that shares reserve revenue with ecosystem partners. Do you think revenue sharing could fundamentally change how stablecoins compete? Actually, Coinbase is joining this. This quite surprised me, but yeah, I'd love to hear your views on this.
I think the revenue sharing. I don't know about you, CJ, but I think the revenue sharing is exactly the point why they decided to open a new playground to work for themselves. Because like Tether or Circle, they didn't build enough kind of over the years. They didn't really build up a model that really benefits the other kind of players who are joining that network, right? So I think that is I think that directly leads to this. But this news is kind of interesting because the follow-up of this news is that several companies stood out saying that it's fake, right? They said like there was no formal discussion, like especially Korean companies. I guess it's because of the tighter regulation concerns there, like Samsung, Demaru, the mother company of Upbit, K-Bank, several others. They said, they considered it, but like there was never a formal discussion set up. So I think this is like also gave Circle a perfect opportunity, right? As Jeremy, the CEO from Circle, wrote on his social media saying that integrity matters. So it's interesting to see how that evolves, because the latest news says that Coinbase and Stripe are in it, like whatsoever. But for other companies, there's still question mark. So it's indeed interesting to see how this evolves. But one thing for sure is that this is gonna be launched. It's just a matter of how many of partners will be in. So it's gonna be an interesting kind of later half of 2026 to see.
Yeah, I think Veronica covered all the builder and operational perspectives very nicely. For me, as an individual user, I think it'll be interesting to see, because I think as we all know, Tether and Circle have sort of, for lack of better word, hidden behind policy and regulation as a reason why we can't really share the yield from our treasuries with our partners or platforms, so we get to keep the 6 or whatever % every year from our short-term treasury bills and be very happy and safe, which is
we just keep that money.
I mean, I'm not trying to sound salty or anything. I think there's also benefits. I think Jeremy, whether to be political, whether he wanted to be politically correct or remain competitive business wise, I think the long statement he made, when people were asking for his thoughts towards the Open USD launch, were that if you cut your profit margins or rather your revenue sources so thin, like what OUSD is pitching, and share with your partners, is that you cannot fund your infrastructure very, very smoothly. And I mean, yes, it does make sense. What he put out does make sense. But I think that's why it'll be interesting to see whether when OUSD actually launches, if they will be able to keep things smoothly operating. Because if it does, then I guess that sort of proves that argument defunct. But no one really knows, right? Because at such a scale with different partners, the only way to know is when you actually try it out. So I think that'll be the interesting part, whether they can execute, or which I don't hope to see is it becomes like a train that derails, because it is exciting with partners like Stripe and Coinbase with huge, especially Stripe with more mainstream distribution channels. It will be interesting to see all these new users coming in. And I guess the other perspective is from a PR perspective as well. It was a bit disappointing to see, like what Veronica mentioned, that a lot of
executed. I wonder who executed that.
Yeah, because it would have otherwise been a huge PR launch. To have 140, right? I can't remember the last time I saw an announcement with 140
yes,
partners, and so many big, well-known names, right, established. And I don't know what happened in the back end. No one knows. No one will know, and only whoever is working on that launch, or whatever they are willing to reveal, right? Maybe some of there were so many executives working with so many partners, they got mixed up. Maybe some of them got overexcited and for lack of better word, greedy, and just want to put in the names there. No one knows, right? But I think it's a bit sad to see from a PR perspective, because it just goes to show how a little bit a difference in detail can sort of put a stain on otherwise what would have been like, I would say, the best launch of the year so far, right? In terms of
Yeah,
scale.
because they can still hit it without those 140. I mean, like Coinbase,
Yeah.
Stripe, these names are already big enough to hit the
Yes,
headline.
exactly. And
And
even
they are
with
very
those,
strong competitors to Circle, of course, as we all admit. And
Mm.
Coinbase
yeah,
has
it was such a
been
pity, right?
for Circle
Because
for a long time. So
yeah, even without those unconfirmed names or those Korean names, yes, they
right,
were big.
yeah.
Even without those, I'm pretty sure the splash it made would have been equally good. So that was a bit of a waste to see from a PR execution standpoint, which is where I focus on in work. So I think it was really sad to see that, because I will only imagine how much work goes in the back end to prepare a launch like that, right?
But I think this
Yeah,
is a
and
smart timing, because like after the Clarity Act, we could see competitions like this becoming more kind of healing in the industry. I don't
yeah,
think OpenUSD will be the last one. There will be some others might be coming along the way. Now that we have
yeah,
more clarity regarding
exactly,
stablecoin.
exactly. And like Veronica mentioned as well, I do agree. It does sort of bring to doubt the integrity of the business practices, right? So
Yeah.
I think it'll be interesting to see whether that turns out on the good side or the negative side when they actually launch. With people like Coinbase and Stripe, I think they would be more or less forced to be very live up to their claims, right? Because these are players that are very familiar with compliance, about execution. So hopefully that'll be for the best. I think another important point is that will it be like, a lot of doomsday people saying that, oh, this is gonna be the end of Circle, Circle Circle crash like what, 16%
No.
or whatever. I think there was a little bit of an overreaction in terms of the stock price. People were selling in panic. I don't think it's really like the end. I think maybe what we'll more or less see is often what we see in reality, something a bit more in the middle, right? Where
You mentioned the point. I saw the news. I thought this is kind of a PR attack to drag the Circle stock market price down, so that the short party can get profit and take from the table. That is my gut feeling when I saw the news. It's like so huge and so unreal. And later on, it was claimed, like some companies that were not in it, whatnot, and then the stock price started to recover. So I thought like conspicuously this could be something like that.
that's a
Very much
good conspiracy theory. Yes. I don't. I mean, it would be. I think it would be like a movie level or sort of plot if that were the case. But I guess only the people who are behind the scenes would know that.
Yeah, the big shots.
Yeah.
The big-
Yeah.
But I think overall, I'd love to see this kind of surprise or competition just in the
Yeah,
industry. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think customers
Always
and
grows the pie.
users will be benefited, right? Like
Yeah,
and
exactly,
eventually
exactly.
all of us will be benefited from competition like this.
Right. Okay. Our next story is about Ethereum. The Ethereum Foundation recently announced a 20% workforce reduction as part of the organization restructuring, and also following several high-profile leadership departures over the past few months. So, do you think Ethereum? Just what happened to Ethereum right now? And yeah,
Oh, I think this is just the shockwaves caused from the senior figures leaving the foundation in over the past 6 months. But they have like 8 or 9 kind of senior figures leaving the
yeah.
foundation already. Yeah, I think this is the logical ending up of a restructuring like this.
Mm.
I think over the years, Ethereum Foundation has been a bit weird. It's a foundation that is supposed to manage and steward a decentralized network, but it ended up being enormous influential. That a lot of ecosystem depended on it. I can honestly feel it, because from my personal marketing perspective, every single event that is associated with Ethereum Foundation with the logo on it is ultra expensive to sponsor. As you can see how influential the event is, and that so many ecosystem and build-ups and startups want to be attached to it, just by even though just a tiny side event and token 249. And CJ, you know better than I do. So I think there has been tension in the organization for a long time, and honestly, it cannot be everything for everyone. And side news is that they also announced ETH Labs, right? So it seems to us that it's kind of shifting towards more independent, more kind of stepping back, more leaving the hands into a decentralized orgs. That feels like okay, as we are no longer a startup, and we need to gradually step back, and the company need to run on its own ecosystem like that. So I honestly think that from an organization's point of view, this might not be a bad news. But from a token secondary market perspective, there could be a little bit shaky because typically this kind of leadership turn, usually you will make the market more formal or nervous, like regarding the secondary market perspective. So it could be a bit shaky and a bit volatile for Ethereum, for ETH in the next couple of months. Depending on whether we're going to see news rolled out from the foundation. Yeah.
Understood. So it's a transition period.
Yeah, CJ has been a very solid, active Ethereum ecosystem player. I mean, like Solana comes first, right? But for you, Ethereum has been years on your watch list. Like, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say whether Solana comes first. I think all whatever blockchains benefit users, I will support. And actually, I don't really, I wouldn't, aside from what Veronica mentioned, I wouldn't even harp on Ethereum that much. I think it's just a natural progression of when a blockchain matures, right? Ethereum is one of the, much more mature than Solana as a blockchain. So I think all blockchains eventually, as they mature, will come to this phase where the old guard has to transition out, and maybe what departments functions used to be relevant, maybe now are not so relevant. So and with every bear market cycle, I think it's very natural, for every organization to sort of restructure a little bit. I don't see that as a bad thing. I do think a bit of the jumping on it was because sadly a lot of people were unhappy with the price, right? But if you look at it, how many crypto ETFs out there with a strong treasury? How many blockchains still have people like Tom Lee and Bitmine, right, buying lots of, this institution showcase that they have a lot of confidence in the long term. And I think the previous narratives that Ethereum ran with, while they haven't, sort of driven a lot of hype, are quite true, right? The ultrasound money narrative in the past, yes, although inflation has stemmed a little bit, but the fact that institutions are looking for blockchains with finality and immutability and reliability, while they may not be, super fast or super cheap like some of the other chains, they are reliable, and institutions do look for that. And we're still sort of seeing that adoption, right? Whether it be in the L2 stacks, just not on the L1 itself. And I think it's just a timing because Vitalik, when he did, support L2 launches a couple years back, he did eventually say that, eventually the L1 is going to sort of reabsorb all these functions that L2s were set out to do in the past. So I think we're just at that stage as well, where the L1s is starting to take on some of the functions that the L2 sought to achieve. So we're getting a little bit of friction there, right, as they're trying to melt all this together, which is why you see still some debate about L2s having been bad and parasitic. I don't agree with that. Without L2s, we wouldn't see the full potential as well. So I think time will tell, but I think ETH will be around to stay for sure. But price, like I said, is never reflective of the performance or effectiveness of a blockchain.
Yeah, well, let's see how the ETH Lab's gonna do, because I don't know, maybe it's a reaction to the Solana institutional adoption, because Solana has been very aggressive in the last 2 years in institutional adoption and compliance, and they have been aggressive in all the markets, even including mainland China. So I'm not sure whether this is a more market reactive way to go for a more pragmatic and market practical real world approach by separating the ETH Labs from the foundation. And it's in the hand of Joe Lubin, who has been managing consensus for years, and who has a perfect sense of the market, and also the associated with a lot of the end user products. So I think this could become more interesting, as let's see how ETH Labs delivers, what they deliver in the roadmap, and that could really decide how Ethereum Foundation are going to be adopted in real life, especially coming as real world adoption on chain stock market, etc. So there will be a lot of things that they would have to compete against other L1s.
Yeah, I mean, before I jump on the next topic, I just want to quickly add on to that as well. I think one of the things Solana has done very well this cycle is to take a more open for lack of a better word, cross-chain embracing approach. And I don't think any other blockchain has done that, right? In terms of, for example, Monet, they onboarded Monet onto the chain, they onboarded Aave onto the chain. I don't think any other blockchain has started to do that this cycle or any other cycles, in fact. And you can even see that on their social platforms, I think, for their prediction markets vote that they just launched. The fact that the prediction markets or the platforms can joke about migrating to Robinhood chain, which is an approach I think previously for other blockchains might have even, it's often very rare, right? Or even taboo to some sense for a blockchain brand account to mention other blockchains, in such a positive light as well. So I think open approach is definitely one I do agree with. Chain cultism, sort of shrinks the pie, it fixes the pie, right? But I think open approach grows it, and that benefits everyone, builders, blockchain builders, users. It's a win-win situation. So I hope to see that sort of spread across.
By the way, CJ, that recalls me that, you saw the news that BNB planning to roll out a new L1 end of the year. Like that promises faster, promises speed, promises I'm not sure whether that is also a reaction to that, to institutional adoption in RWA. Possible, because there could be some technical limitations of the current chain structure that they have to roll out a new version of that. So that it's going to be an interesting chapter for next year.
That'll be interesting to see. I hope they sort of don't make it like an L2 sort of transition. They should, if it's really an L1, they need to focus everything, shift it over, for lack of a better word, fork, but everything goes there, because BNB chain itself is doing great as an ecosystem. I think CoinGecko data shows
how they prioritize, and especially liquidity wise, which one they prefer and which one they will persuade people to move to. So it's kind of okay.
Okay, let's move on to our last story for this month. This one's from the Solana ecosystem after the Ethereum. So Bonk DAO reportedly lost around $20 million after a Malaysia's governance proposal was approved, allowing funds to be transferred from the DAO treasury. So as DAO treasury's value growing, do you think they should introduce stronger safeguard instead of maybe in a way, if it means sacrificing some, decentralizations?
Yeah, I think maybe I'll just quickly comment on that since I'm a little bit more in the know as a user, I guess. I think in the bear market, it really sort of lifts the layer behind how much people actually care about governance, right? Because the unfortunate thing was that this proposal was out there for 6 days. So if people actually care about governance, and people had lots of time to see that this is a malicious proposal and doesn't make sense, right? So some people are saying that it was it was part of the team that put it up and all that. I don't know, no one would actually be able to verify that. But what I do think that's sad to see is that, of course, that one of the more established meme coins for Solana is affected from it, and that we still have a long way to go in terms of governance on chain, right? In terms of applications and how much that people actually believe in it. I do think there's a future for it, but it will be a while. It will be a while. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That will be all the headlines from June. So with the rise number of security incident, let me give a quick shout out to the SafePal's official customer support. So if you need help, first option, go to safepal.com/sitemap, or you can use this support shortcut they can find in the SafePal app settings to submit it. Those are the only 2 official and secure channels. Perfect. Now it's time for our favorite part. Let's take a look at what the SafePal team has been cooking over the past month. There are a lot of exciting progress here. So let's go. All right, there's a lot of things happening here. Veronica, CJ, was there any update that you personally very excited about or think deserves a bit more attention? You want to
Oh,
share?
it's funny that Robin Hood chain is now famous because of meme. I never imagined, like when we integrated it, I was thinking to myself that, this is a big step to RWA. Like we're real stepping into this, and we're gonna introduce on-chain stocks to global users. And now it's becoming a flashcat that like Robinhood chain becomes famous. So it's kind of funny that he might like that. Yeah, CJC, see what you have. This is my only comment, but overall quite exciting of the new month's updates.
Yeah,
I'm also make it very convenient for people to use it more.
Yeah, I had a similar thought process going into the launch as well. Like, wow, this chain has the right approach, right distribution channel. They've been doing stocks for a long time. We're gonna see RAs. And I found it funny as well. And I saw some comments that were very preachy about it, right? Saying that, this is bad, meme coins bad. And I think, when I first, entered the industry by 5+ years ago, I sort of have aversion to it as well. But I think over time, I've chatted with Veronica a few times on this topic. I think our industry is a bit like when you eat a meal, right? You can't just say that, I only want my rice, I only want meat, I don't want vegetables. Whether meme coins are vegetables or meat, I won't elaborate because some people like meat or vegetables.
Snack. Like a snack.
Yeah, you got to have everything, right? And I think over time, whatever narratives that have been tried to be forced, it shows that meme coins are essential part of the industry. And I see them more as like a tokenized attention, right? Whenever you see that, whenever a new launch of every chain or resurgence of interest in any chain, what's the first thing that pops up? Meme coins, because that's what they are. They are attention, and all that. Do I think it's a bad thing? Actually, no. I think it's a very natural progression. I think the two things that will be interesting to observe is, will meme coins become a mainstay together with the RWAs that Robinhood set out to push? If it is, fantastic. Because very few chains have actually managed to make meme coins a mainstay. I think Solana is one of them, and not their only mainstay as well. The second thing I think that maybe is important as well is the intention behind meme coins. If you go in thinking that, okay, this is tokenized attention, that it's a good bit of fun. I get to buy cash cat or whatever it is on chain, that's fine. Because I think that should be the positive essence of memes. But if you go in thinking that, I'm gonna make a 10x from this, then I think a lot of people are gonna be burned, right? And that's the bad part about some meme coins. You go in, new users going in get excited, they get burned, and then they never come back. So hopefully that's not the case. Yeah. As for the exciting part, I think, we'll be I think announcing soon is that not just for this support. I know what Ashley is excited about, so I'll leave her to elaborate that. Right? Is that for RWAs, right? If you want memes, we have it on SafePal Swap already. But for RWAs, we have Robinhood chain stock tokens. We have Ondo tokenized stocks. We have X stocks, which is coming on later. So we have that full platform. We are really ready to support that RWA for people that are interested. And
I'm actually creating that assets for tomorrow announcement. So it's
we just supported these stocks like 1-2 hours before I even didn't have time to get it in. But happy to say, this is one of those few things that aren't on news embargo, so I can finally share it without worrying about timeline to launch. Thankfully, it's one of the features I can talk happily about, which is rare. So yeah, people can look forward to that. So that's one of the things I'm excited about as well. Yeah, so I'll leave Ashley to elaborate on what she's excited about.
Yeah, sure. Oh, people will know it from tomorrow announcement. So yeah, let's move on to our next session. It's a Q&A session. So thanks for everyone that left a question, and congrats. This month we have GUI, SOS, and Kaura winning. So who want to answer the first question? With phishing on the rise, what are the top 2 to 3 new security features SafePal is prioritizing 2026 to keep our assets safe? But let's keep the answer brief. So because we are a little bit running over time, and I think our guest is waiting.
Yeah, I'm gonna share one. See if CJ have other comments for the security feature. We're gonna expand to more chains for the revoke manager. So right now it only covers several chains. We are looking to move it to a few more other chains to make it cover a wider range of blockchain ecosystem, so that people can one click to see that. Yeah, see if CJ you want to add some more stuff. Yeah.
Yep, I'll keep brief as well. I think for me the thing I'm excited about is the constant and enhancing of our UI. Product UI. So I think users can look forward to a more simple, easy to use UI, hopefully. but with comprehensive functionality and more importantly, education embedded into the UI to sort of let the users learn to become the best security practices and things to look out for. So yeah, that will be the things I think that's important.
Perfect. Okay, second question from SOS. I'm trying so hard to know why the card and all the benefits with card was only made available for only European residents. So actually, it's not true. It's not only for European.
Yeah, it's not real, right?
Yeah, it isn't. So I think I like the question for Eric because we get to sort of reiterate that we do support a lot of regions. For users that are curious, just go to www.safepal.com/bank/regions to see supported regions, and the regions, right, are not dictated strictly by us. We the banking partner we're working with, Fiat24, goes through the whole proper process of getting the FINMA license and making sure that the regions that are supported are licensed properly first for compliance. So whatever regions we're seeing is dependent on that. And they are still working on expanding. We are looking to expand to more regions to serve our users in a compliant manner for the banking gateway. So hope that answers the question. And I think that also drives in a bit to a feature that Ashley is excited about, which is the football team campaign that we'll be having. We have those very nice I have to say it, we have those very nice eight designs, right, for the bank card. So pick your favorite team if you're a banking gateway user, and then get to redeem it and maybe hopefully win some official merch. So that is the other thing as well that I think is fun to look forward to, right?
Yeah. Right. And what about the last one
question
from Cobra? The recent in-app polymarket integration allows direct EVM asset to USDC conversion and hardware wallet signing. Are there plans to extend this specific direct signing framework to non-EVM prediction markets, such as native Bitcoin wrapped asset or Cosmos later this year?
TJ, you can take this one. I saw you checking with the team earlier.
Yeah. I'll touch on these two very quick areas. Firstly, right, I'm happy this user noticed our polymarket integration because I think last year, near the end of the year, we were still I remember having this conversation about Veronica, where the prediction markets, makes sense to be integrated in the wallet. It was so new back then. And I'm happy to say, with events like the World Cup, we've been seeing traction and all that. So it makes sense. So I'm happy that users are noticing that. It's been doing well. The second thing on the Bitcoin wrap assets and Cosmos ecosystem. So firstly, I must say our native integration polymarket has served this very well because it's on a few chains, so that works very nicely. They serve a wide variety of prediction markets. So in terms of user needs, it's very well covered, which is always our top priority. It will be a while before we support other assets, not because we don't think they're important, but I think if you look at the specific ecosystems themselves, like Cosmos and all that, unfortunately, Cosmos ecosystem is a little bit fragmented, a bit lost at the moment. Prediction markets, on that ecosystem are sort of, if they are existent, are still budding. So it doesn't make sense for us to integrate that at the moment. The liquidity wouldn't be sufficient. I would say the reliability of the prediction markets resolving, which is important, wouldn't be that reliable as well. And that matters for us to our users. So it will be a while. Firstly, because of our current integration serves us very nicely already and our users very nicely. Our dev pipeline will be better spent on other things. And more importantly, these specific ecosystems don't have mature enough prediction or I would say more comprehensive enough prediction markets yet for it to make sense. But when it does, as a chain agnostic, comprehensive, wallet suite, we will definitely look into that. And of course, any other needs from users, please send it through to us, and we'll be happy to look if it makes sense to add on.
Mm-hmm. Okay, hope we answer your questions. And if you didn't see your question today, be sure to join next month, and each winner are winning like an exclusive SafePal merch box. A huge thank you to Veronica for joining us today and sharing the insights with us. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you have.
Very excited for the speaker today, Matt and Leonard. I will stay tuned and listen to the episode.
Very relevant to all the topics we're sharing. So I'm quite excited to have everyone as well.
Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Veronica.
Bye, Veronica. Okay. All right. Without further ado, let's jump into part 3 and welcome our guest speakers. So our first guest joining us today is XSox, one of the pioneers in tokenized equities. I bring over 100 tokenized stocks and ETFs on chain. We're excited to have Matt, the BD at Xtalks, with us today. Hi, Matt. Are you there?
Hello, guys. How are you?
Cool,
Thank you
cool.
for
Good.
inviting me.
Sorry for the wait, but yeah,
It's all
welcome,
good.
welcome. Yeah, to kick things off, could you briefly introduce yourself and tell us a bit more about your role at Xtalks, and give everyone a quick overview of what it's all about?
Sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, basically, I've been working in crypto since 2021. Started building a local community in Italy that grew a lot. Then I made a little exit from that community, probably the only one that really happened in Italy for that kind. And I started working in DeFi in a few protocols. And in August last year, I joined Xtalks, and fast forward almost a year, I'm now leading 90% of our DeFi efforts in terms of BDM partnership at Xtalks, and I also deal with some institutional players to make sure that the adoption of tokenized stocks moves forward and that they recognize the real value behind Xtalks. So basically, just to give a quick roundup of Xtalks, we tokenize over 170 US stocks, of course, like public equities, not pre-IPOs, etc. We recently we do it on Solana, we do it on Ethereum, on Inc, on Mantle, and many other chains, and other new ones coming up. Right now we are still growing. Like the trend seemed like on some other players was sort of stalling, while we registered the good growth that, in my opinion, has been driven by us focusing a lot in DeFi and on the on-chain side more broadly, and also for the IPO products that we are offering via Kraken and other partners. Like, for example, we launched the last, I believe, a week or so ago, the Bending Spoons IPO. We registered a very important commitment from users across a few different platforms like Kraken, Telegram Wallet, and we had many millions in AUM coming into Xtalks as a result of that. And we are still around $1+ million in AUM for that asset alone, which is like a very niche asset because I'm Italian, and that's an Italian company that got listed on the Nasdaq. So I'm pretty proud of what we did here, and we were able to fulfill 100% of the commitments from the users, which is very rare for IPOs, and it's something that we are building on, right? And we also are the biggest one currently for total value tokenized in SpaceX stocks. So that's definitely a signal that we are sending to the potential users of Xtalks, or the users that are already holding Xtalks, that is a vertical that we want to build a lot on. Sorry for taking a lot of time, but I wanted to give a quick overview.
Not at all. I think I think it's really awesome when what you're working and building on also ties into us your national pride as well, right? As an Italian, to bring something to fruition that matters. In circumstances like that, I always feel very excited as well. You mentioned.
So I have the Bending Spoons office like a couple of kilometers away from me.
Awesome.
Like the headquarters.
And I have to say as well, you mentioned you handle about 90% of the DeFi initiatives that Xtalks handle. I must say, I know you guys have been taking a huge market share for tokenized stocks, so I'm not going to elaborate more on that success. But I think on chain, right, where the DeFi is, the growth really shows as well. I remember one of the concerns or issues I had with tokenized stocks on chain first was the liquidity, right? And I must say Xtalks has grown a lot in the area. For example, on Solana, I remember when Xtalks first launched on Camino, where you could sort of deposit your Xtalks and maybe borrow against like the S&P 500, the tokenized Xtalk version, and borrow USDC against it. the liquidity was a bit low at the time, but right now it's already, each asset is already in a few million. So liquidity is much more sufficient back then. I think that's a very good milestone, especially if we're heading DeFi. And I know you guys just launched initiative with Pancake Swap on Solana, right? To further build that liquidity around other X stocks. So I must say you've been killing it with the DeFi initiatives there.
Yeah. So basically, like the Camino market, benefited from the launch of Xpoint, but at the same time, the interest on Solana has always been high for X stocks, and this much new liquidity also led the Camino team, which is a very conservative team, and props to them for being that conservative, because lots of other protocols get either exploited or go into bad debt because of their, let's say, excessive risk appetite. While Camino has been like very conservative, a very good team. We really have a good relationship with them, and also love them as a protocol. They were able to raise the LTVs on X stocks. Once they were around 50-60%, now they're over 70%, I believe, across the board. They are the new assets. We're building a lot on the Kraken side as well. I'm not spoiling much about it, but you're gonna see some good stuff coming out of this partnership and other ones as well. And yeah, definitely, like DeFi is a huge piece for us, and I'm very glad I can use my creative skills to try to find new ways to improve X stocks on chain. And definitely we have lots of good partners, as you mentioned, PancakeSwap, and that's something they completely did out of the blue. Like, we didn't ask them to do anything. That's just a milestone that gives a sign of confidence into our products from our partners, which is great to see. And lots of other partners, like for example, also SafePal, did a lot of stuff with and for X stocks without us asking anything. So it means that there is demand, and I guess overall we were able to create a good environment for builders to build on top of X stocks. Because as I always say to partners and potential partners as well, X stocks is a plug and play friendly product. So we always encourage builders to build on top of it, and we are happy to support them all the way, especially if they innovate.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like a little bit on Camino as well. I remember using them like 2+ years ago when it was still like only focused on concentrated liquidity pools, the automated version, and we're building that. So it's amazing to see how they've grown so much to move in the borrow and lending, and to touch on RWAs as well. I think probably in the mainstream world, yes, you can easily get your stocks, right? But for you to be able to collateralize it and we borrow against it, I think you have. I don't think that's possible for everyone, and if you would, you have to go through a lot of paperwork. But whereas on chain, you can do that very seamlessly. You can see all your APYs very transparently as well. So it's awesome, and I hope to see that expand a lot further.
Yeah, definitely. Like, this is very important for us, in my opinion, that this is lending itself can be used for a lot of things. Like even getting credit lines on top of your, equities is something that can be used in many different ways. You can use it even like with a card of a new bank to spend it. If you have an integration on a new bank, and we're working on different fronts, and that's definitely something that we looked into. So yeah, I really believe that partners like Camino are instrumental for X stocks to grow and to consolidate actually the positioning of this product into the broader ecosystem, let's say.
Cool. So Matt, you're the BD for X stocks. That means you are bridging X stocks with like a lot of pieces of the or projects, players in the industry. So I want to take a step back and maybe look into the whole picture. So where do you think tokenized equity fit into the industry landscape, or maybe like a broader way, like financial system now and in the future?
So X stocks is now is US listed equities.
Mm-hmm.
Soon, one day, will be tokenizing different markets, and I believe that one big pro of tokenized stocks is definitely the access part of it. I don't know if you guys have where are you guys based, but like for example, in many parts of Asia, you can't actually trade stocks from the US or from Korea or from other geographies because there are lots of problems in how these markets are coming together and they're made available for the end user from retails to institutions sometimes. And a big piece of what we do at Xdocs and our big focus of ours is APAC, for example, and LATAM, is to enable access for this kind of users that can actually create a portfolio that is composed by a lot of ETFs and stocks that are tokenized on chain, and they can use them in DeFi. They can get access to it via traditional exchange, traditional CEXs if they want to, or in DeFi, with lots of pieces of infrastructure that we built together with partners, and that let them choose where to trade them, where to, let's say, lend them, etc., so on and so forth. Like you might have seen also that we integrated with Pando, with Juplend, and many other partners that unlocked new pieces for our product stack, let's say. And another thing that is very important, but maybe one day will change, is the 24/7 trading. That's something that we already do. We have, I think, around 20 assets that have at least 100K worth of liquidity inside Radium pools, for example. And we also have inventory-based RFQ working 24/7 on platforms like UniX, 0x, Bebop, etc. on Ethereum. And also we have very good partners that enable this on Mantle, etc., etc. And that's another big piece of what Xdocs means for the whole ecosystem. And the last piece, in my opinion, is the composability of these instruments in DeFi. We chose a rebasing model that is typical for liquid staking tokens that can be wrapped, of course, for liquidity providing, etc., to give the best experience to users who would like to hold them, and also for those who would like to put them as liquidity on Uniswap or on other platforms, so that they can, let's say, grow their tokenized stocks on chain, and they can, as I mentioned previously, like use lending markets as credit lines or ways to get loans on top of their holdings, something that in traditional finance is basically impossible. And also, like in itself, the stocks lending, if you go to a centralized like traditional broker and you enable that, you're gonna get maximum like 50 bips, so 0.5% per year in yield out of that, which is good. I mean, you're earning something, but like you have to see it in a risk-adjusted way. And in DeFi, it's at least like on Camino, Juplend, etc., at least 4 times higher, which is already a statement. For someone that wants to.
I think jumping in quickly as well before I let you finish, Matt, and also for Ash to wrap up as well. I think I really like that you mentioned about the weekend trading thing, right? Because I think that's still an issue that needs to be resolved for RWs and tokenized stocks. So it's awesome to hear that Xstocks is actively working with partners on ensuring there's ample liquidity during weekends. One interesting thought that popped into my mind when you mentioned that was like, I do hope to see like either one of two outcomes happen, like that established providers like Xstocks are able to work with so many partners to provide that kind of depth that's needed, that trading on the weekend is no different from the weekday. I don't know if that's just a pipe dream, but I hope to see it happen. Or, which will be interesting to see, is that I've seen some people propose that before, like, hey, the traditional financial markets to just trade 24/7. I don't hope to see that happen. It would be interesting, because that shows the impact of our industry, right? But the traditional financial industry is already as high, stressful as it needs to be. So I don't think anyone will be happy to see it become 24/7. But yeah, it would be interesting to see how that expands, and excited to see how Xstocks resolves that as well.
Yeah, on that side, like generally speaking, if you trade a stock like after the market is closed, you can, for example, I don't remember, but I think you can on Robinhood to like after hours trading. By default, liquidity is less because the market is not open, right? So you can't do much about it in itself, and that's something that applies during weekends, especially if you're, let's say, you want price discovery, and at the same time, like, you want to assure enough liquidity, but you don't have like liquid, let's say, counterpart on traditional markets that enables that on a larger scale. It's difficult until as we mentioned, the whole system, the whole financial system starts trading these assets 24/7, and then you see HFT firms, market makers, etc., making the market the whole week, and that's liquidity in the multi-billions range, right? So it's not something that you can produce out of nothing like this. Even for a behemoth, let's say, like Kraken, is complicated to provide enough liquidity in any way possible to these markets without actually paying lots of let's say costs in terms of capital. But we're working a lot on the 24/7 liquidity for X stocks, and we are definitely going to have some announcements coming up for this as well. And yeah, the end goal is to have a very, very good liquidity outside of trading hours, and that covers also the weekend part of the argument.
Amazing.
Awesome,
I'm
awesome.
looking more forward to hearing what it is. Okay. Amazing, Matt. Thanks so much for joining us today. And yeah, we really appreciate your time. And we are excited to see how X stocks continue to push tokenized stocks and also the whole industry forward. Thanks again for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Hope to see the X stocks vision really materialize. Especially for bringing RWAs on chain.
Absolutely, yeah. We're working to make this even better for users and to have very interesting pieces of infrastructure that everyone can actually use, and supercharge their portfolios with efficient 24/7 markets across, like, borderlessly and composable for their tokenized stocks. So thank you very much, guys, for having me, for taking the time to invite us, and big props to you for this very interesting live full of very clever questions.
Thank you so
Awesome,
much,
Matt.
Matt.
Awesome. Thank you so
Have a
much.
good
It was our pleasure. Have a great.
Bye. You too, guys.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye. Okay. And without further ado, let's move on to our next guest. Now let's welcome Leonard joining us. Many of you are probably already familiar with Aster, the next-gen perpetual DEX built for all kinds of trader. Joining us today is Leonard, CEO of Aster. Leonard, great to meet you. To kick things off, could you briefly introduce yourself and tell everyone what Aster is all about? But I'm pretty sure everyone here already know Aster pretty well.
I hope for good reasons. But yeah, hi everyone. I'm Leonard, CEO of Aster. So before joining crypto industry, I think like a lot of builders working in finance, I was working on high frequency trading infrastructure and risk system before that in traditional banks. Then I tried to start other projects. It failed quite miserably, and I ended up working for an exchange later, known as the biggest exchange, Binance. And during that time, I kind of learned on how to run an exchange, like how to work with the team, and also because I had the chance to on working with a lot of decentralized projects, kind of shake my belief that the future of finance should be something is as efficient as centralized exchange, but with the transparency and self-custody nature of decentralized finance and the openness. So that's how me and my team we ended up starting Aster. It was called Polo X for a long time, and then we kind of rebranded it, refocused on building the order book perp decks that most people know Aster for. And for those who haven't used Aster, Aster is like a decentralized perp exchange. We have our own Aster chain, which is like a purpose-built blockchain that designed specifically for trading perps with privacy. So we're one of the few known like perp decks that has a privacy function, so you can self-custody while protecting your privacy when you trade. You can have the option of publishing a trade or just make it verifiable by yourself. That is also available on blockchain. So yeah, that's pretty much myself and Esther. And SafePal is one of the first partner that integrate us. Like we went way back in the Polix days. And when we upgrade, obviously, SafePal is one of the most supportive partners to kind of like integrate and upgrade with the new Aster, and it has like been like our top partners, definitely top three. And like recently, I think it went all the way up as one of our Aster co-builders with the biggest volume. So yeah, happy to be here. Probably long ado, but thank you for having me.
Yeah, I mean, I really appreciate you taking the time to share and mostly importantly join us. I know things were like crazy busy when Aster first launched and we integrated back then as well. Funny thing is, before I joined SafePal 3+ years ago, I actually did use Apollo X on BNB chain because I know perps weren't that hot back then, but it was back then still the most established BNB perp deck chain back then. And the funny thing was, I also noticed that it was one of the few that you could trade perps quite in a more feasible manner back then. So it's been amazing to see how it's grown so far over the years as it transitioned to Aster. Yeah, so Ash, as we move on to the next slide as well, I think one question a lot of users, myself included, would be curious about is, especially as I mentioned about 3 years back, perps weren't that hot. Is perps right now, of course, they do take up or account for majority of the crypto trading volume right now, right, as the data shows. So in your professional and personal opinion, why do you think perpetuals and of course with the contribution of providers like Aster have become crypto's most popular trading product right now?
I'll give my unbiased view first, and then I'll give my biased view. So first, I think, like you said, the perp decks has been around for quite a while. I think when we first integrate Apollo X to SafePal, it was I would call it the DYDX era.
I remember that. I remember that era. DYDX was the hotter perp decks.
Yeah. They were the one that kind of started everything, but then I remember using them. It takes 8 seconds to confirm a trade, which is like unacceptable for most users who have experienced sex, right? Like a centralized exchange. So I think the product's definitely better now. I would say this is the third iteration. The second iteration was like GMX era, where like there's no order book. Basically, you have like LP that you're trading against. But then that give better experience, but doesn't have the
trading pairs weren't that much. I remember. Yes,
trading pairs, and I think most people are used to order books, and by the result, like by what we see today, most people actually prefer to trade on an order book. So I think this is the third iteration. So we have the centralized efficiency, but like a decentralized infrastructure running on decentralized infrastructure, and it's an order book setup. So I think because like it's the third time around, it's a better product. People can just enjoy using it a lot more. That's why I think it is more popular. The second thing is it's always the case in a bear market that perps get a high market share. So we are unfortunately in a relative bear market.
Quite, yes.
So
Not as bad as the previous one, but yes, I think yes, we are in
yes,
like a quieter condition at the moment.
so yeah, when there's less volatility, less like new 100x, 1000x meme coins, then people tend to trade. The ratio of people that trades perps versus spot tends to increase. So I think that's another reason. And finally, my opinion is that perps is simply a better product. This is my biased opinion. You can leverage, you can long, you can short, right? You can listing is a lot faster because you don't have to, you have less infrastructure problem to handle. As long as you have an Oracle, then you can basically start a market, right? You don't have to support deposit, withdrawal, and it's easier to trade for most people because like you already have your collateral ready, right? You can trade immediately. You don't have to convert in the specific spot pair that is available in your region in your account to kind of trade it. So it's
Yeah,
just
I
more
think it's great
capital
that you
efficient.
mentioned that as well because for derivatives, like perps, and I think that really ties into Esther's approach, right? Because I noticed you guys have been shipping, right? You guys have onboarded B stocks, you guys have onboarded Ansem, even Cashcat, Robinhood, and like you mentioned, you can do
Yes,
that because perps are derivatives, so you don't have to worry about whether it's has to be on a chain and bring it over. You can create the derivative, and in that essence,
exactly.
I do agree exactly. Perps is better in that aspect as well.
I would say perp is better in as a trading product, and tokenized stock RWA is a better ownership product. So it's like satisfying like two different kind of needs. So if you're like long term like ownership kind of investor, then tokenized stock is better, right? You just like, you can get better protection and it's simpler. You don't have funding rate and everything. But if you are a trader and you're trying to satisfy trading needs on an asset, then perps is more capital efficient, has more potential strategy that you can deploy, has usually has faster and more asset offering. So I think that's why it's been gaining popularity, especially for more advanced traders. And because we're crypto and perps still relatively young asset class, so the number of traders is still increasing, especially the advanced one. That's why you're seeing like a bigger portion of the volume and user using perps, in my opinion. And I think the adoption is not just people are more used to it. It's more readily available through more platforms, right? Like you see, Safe they can now trade on SafePal, like perpetual through like with
For sure,
Esther.
yes,
So
exactly.
yeah,
Up to 100x
accessibility,
leverage.
yes. So accessibility, I do think through each iteration is also improving. That's why it's getting a bigger portion of the like entire industry, I would say.
Yeah, and I guess part of that personal belief in perps being the superior product, like you mentioned, I guess that's also part of the reasons why it's translated to the awesome metrics you see uh, in the slide today, right? Anything you want to share a little bit more? I know the numbers speak for themselves, but anything else you want to share more on the slides here before we move on to the next one?
I think like we mentioned all these numbers like multiple times, but uh, I do think that like the like we were the number that we focused on the most is the market share, like how many users actually are trading on us. Because I think eventually like the market will fluctuate in terms of trading volume depending on like where we're bear or bull market, but then adoption is something that you can just like reverse. Like once this is in people's mind, once people have tried it, they've tried 24/7 24/7 trading, then they wouldn't be able to go back to a like venue where they just couldn't trade. So I think
Mhm.
like we can move on, like because I think like for those who
Sure,
haven't
sure.
tried our
Numbers
product,
speak for themselves. Yes. Okay.
so for those who haven't
As
tried
well.
our product, then yeah, like I encourage you to try. For those who have tried, I think like telling people like how many people have used it wouldn't like it's not that like convincing. They probably have opinion on our product already. And I for those who in this today's call who have tried, our team is available on like all platforms. You can just DM us if you have any product feedbacks that you feel like okay, like we should have done this, we should have stopped doing that. Even through the SafePal integration, right? Like if there's anything you feel like we should improve on, just like far ahead.
Yeah, we take feedback from our users very seriously as well. So if there's any improvement points, we'll definitely be sharing that as the team. And I think you've shared a little bit about why you think perps have evolved over time and why it's the superior product and taken up so much market share as a vertical for Web3. So maybe let's focus back on Aster itself. So what do you think has made Aster probably differentiate itself from maybe other competitors or providers that's contributed to some of the numbers in the previous slide?
So I think first thing, we support multiple chains. Like now I know like some of our competitor also does that, but we were one of the first few that who support multi-chain, and that makes us a little bit more capital efficient and like give user more universal access. Like you can use your Solana address, just deposit Solana and directly use it as collateral to trade Ansem, for example. I think that's the number two. I think we have been very we focuses on privacy. That's always our identity, because we believe in order for the real mass adoption to happen, we have to have the option of staying private. Like the most prominent perp decks right now usually don't have that feature. Every single trade would signal all the players in the same exchange, and you might lose alpha because of that, or you might get liquidation hunted because of that. So I think like on Aster, that like is entirely up to you if you want to broadcast a trade, so that people will react, so you can trade on top of that. By all means, do that. Right? But you still have the option of for you to stay private and to trade discreetly, and that's unique to us. I think.
Yeah, I'm happy you mentioned that as well. The native privacy part, I think, is really underrated feature, right? Like obviously, I think if you're a whale, right, you're gonna get annoyed if after a while people start copy trading you or especially liquidation hunting you. So I think heavily underrated feature and really excited for that. I know some of our SafePal users might start questioning us after that. How come we can't use we don't have the native privacy on the SafePal feature for Aster yet? Rest assured, we are working on bringing that up to the feature also as well. So users can look forward to that. We are working on that with the next version update. And yes, I can say that without worrying about leaking in advance. Yes, like I mentioned that, I'm happy to say, normally I handle PR, so I have some things I cannot say in advance. I can say that, so I'm very proud and happy to say that. This is a feature we value, and we're also looking beyond the users as well. Before any
people will show up in our next month recap video.
Yes.
For sure. Okay.
Yep. So awesome on sharing that as well. Before we move on, any the next topics as well, any thing else you want to add that you really think contributes to Aster's competitive advantage?
I think you mentioned of it, like we're one of the more reactive team to market trends. We release fairly quickly. I'm like you guys mentioned Cash Cat, like we listed yesterday as well, and we are probably like when we first listed Ansem, we were the only one. I don't know whether there's another one that's listed there, but then now I think most of we're the first to list it as a perp market, and then I think we are still the most active one. And interestingly, like the sole prop dexes, like a lot of them still don't have it, and we actually attracted quite a lot of sole traders to trade on us because of that. So I think that is more of a culture thing because everyone can list, right? But I think the fact that our team is more well connected to markets, trying to listen to the community what they want to trade, I think that is something that is hard to copy because listing you can always copy, but like the difference is just a few hours, a few days, and then liquidation, formation, and price discovery happens. Once it happens at one place, it just stay there. So I think that's like the team responsiveness and the speed of execution by selecting and listing asset. That's always been like our competitive advantage. And I think privacy, that's always something that's unique to us. And I think we're way more open to work with other teams. Not to like name names, but then I think like some of the other perp dexes are more focused to be a protocol. I don't think it's a bad thing. It's just that like they try to standardize everything and then make it fully decentralized and and make sure that everything goes through a same standard procedures. For us, we actually are more open to work with the ecosystem players. Happy to like incentivize, happy to like customize for our partners, so that it's easier to build with us. So that's why I think, relatively speaking, we have more uh, great partners, like SafePal, obviously. But I think that's also something that's uniquely us.
Yeah, I think one thing that you mentioned that's very valuable as well is the speed of listings also matter, or rather the selection of listings. I think that's something that really can't be forced or trained, so to speak, because it also showcases not just the sensitivity to user needs and market trends by your team members, but also that I think your team members also care, or are very active participants in the industry. I think otherwise that wouldn't be possible, right? And I must have to I have to clarify to any listeners first. I'm not a meme coin trader. Whether I think meme coins are good or bad is irrelevant, but I think meme coins are uh, volatile, right? There's a lot of volatility there whenever it launches, or whenever it's active. And I think for that, there are traders that want to take both directions. They want to be able to execute strategies in both directions. And that isn't something that is readily available for meme coins, especially when it first launch. So having that kind of sensitivity towards listings, I think it's great value add there. Yeah. So appreciate you sharing, a bit deeper on what otherwise might be a hot button topic for maybe other projects and builders, because not everyone's that comfortable talking about their competitive advantages or how they fare up to other providers. I think also that showcases not just more or less the confidence in platform and project as well. Yeah, so we've talked a little bit, about the industry and how perps have evolved as a whole, and Esther specifically at present. So maybe let's move a little bit more towards the future as well, a bit long term landscape. So in maybe like the next uh 3 years, right? Where do you see perps evolving, and what is Esther looking to, working towards to sort of meet that kind of future and vision? And of course, I think that also includes some of the recent updates here, and probably what some of the um, more closer things that the team will be working on.
I think the gentleman from X Octaves mentioned, I agree with him. The vision is like on chain perps or on chain exchanges will be the one stop shop for everything tradable. Maybe it's in the form of tokenized stock, and maybe it's in the form of perps, but it will be the one stop shop because of how permissionless entry will be available on all exchanges, on all on-chain exchanges. So the creation of different asset and formation of liquidity will be way more efficient on chain. Well, that at least that's what I believe in. So like for us, we actually we are trying to make that permissionless decentralized future closer to everyone. We have just standardized how permissionless listing is going to be working on us with the AOS, like Aster Open Standard 1, and AOS 2, which is like for the perps market. And that will and we are working with more partners to introduce more markets that are in demand but it's not available. One of the things that we're focusing on is all this Asian stock perps. I think that's what everyone is trying to deliver. I think Xbox has mentioned this as well. And I believe those will come to Aster very soon as well. All the hot tech stocks that's available in like Hong Kong, Japan, Korea, all these markets that are at least accessible to maybe the other side of the world will make that happen. And I think with enough demand, the liquidity will form. The weekend and overnight liquidity will kind of start to grow, and will eventually achieve that 24/7 global asset, universal trading venue vision. Yeah, that's like what we're trying to do, what we're trying to achieve, and we hopefully eventually push the entire industry into that vision.
Awesome. Like, although I mean, I can't fathom whether that it would be good for the traders' health to be really that seamless 24/7. I when it does happen, it would be awesome to see, right? Because I think that also sort of is giving a little bit of, for lack of a better word, a bit of like a middle finger back to the TradFi industry, right? That, hey, we've sort of made an impact on your industry, right? And we've changed the way that trading stocks otherwise might have worked. So excited to see that vision materialize as well. Another thing I noticed, of course, that's part of the product updates here is that, aside from all the features and functionality, one thing that I would say Esther has been, distributing the attention resources about quite well is that you've also your team hasn't neglected to also sort of improve the tokenomics as well. Anything you want to share a little bit more on that area as well, since it's one of the points
Yeah, we
mentioned.
have just updated tokenomics. So we have kind of created this new idea of like burning and buyback plus burn 198% of the of our income, which is a little bit of a math trick, but basically all the income from 99% of the income that we make right now from fee, we're going to use it for buybacks and redistribute to our stakers. So it's a lot more like rewarding now to buy and stake Aster. At the same time, we will take out the equal amount of tokens from our lock reserve starting with our team allocation and to burn it. So to remove the future overhang supply, with the goal of eventually reducing the total supply to 3 billion. Now it's 8 billion, so it's like more than a 50% reduction. Like with the current math, it will take a while, but then I think what we believe, at least when we designed this, is that the pie is going to grow bigger, and we're going to grow our market share as well, which means our income will be multiples of what we, at least we hope, multiple of what we have today, and that would shorten the time it requires to reach the eventual goal of the total supply. So the whole design is to, I just want to make sure that like our income is being captured by our token holders, and so that we can focus on building a better product to create that value for everyone.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, after having been in the industry for the time, I would say that in my experience, the token tends to become a separate product from the protocol function itself. So for builders like Esther, so that tackle, takes you take on the challenge of balancing both and sort of trying to synergize them. I think that deserves a lot of respect. So I'm pretty excited to see how that sort of evolves and advances over time. So I think we've talked about a lot of different topics, the industry, how perps has evolved, Esther as a whole, and maybe as a deeper dive, tokenomics and some of the product updates. So I think we've covered probably most of what topics users would be curious about. Is there anything else probably on your end that you think users would want to know? You think users that are on the fence about Esther, or users that are long-time users or considering Esther, you would want them to know, before we let you go about the rest of the day?
So if you haven't tried us, give it a shot. We are a perp trading venue, but then we also have like some new product that's coming up. We support a lot of Alderby as a collateral. So even if you're just a tokenized stock traders, you can buy and hold with us. And in occasions where you do need to collateralize and take on position, you can do that on Aster without selling your tokens, tokenized stock. So test our product, tell us what you like about us, don't like about us. We are one of the most responsive team in the industry, and we're looking forward to build the app build a trading platform that everybody can enjoy using.
Awesome. Thanks again for sharing and taking the time out. Ash, anything you want to add on your end as well?
I think just a big shout out to Aster, and just stay tuned on what we're like working with Aster in the coming weeks or coming weeks. That just don't miss out the update. Yeah, that's all from my side. Thank you, Leonard, so much for joining
Thank
us
you.
today. Yeah, I really appreciate sharing all those insights, and also excited to see what's next for Aster. Thank you. Have a good one.
Yeah. Thanks, Leonard. Have a good one.
Bye. Okay. Okay, that brings us to the end of today's community call. Yeah, a huge thank you to CJ for joining us today and just having very great conversation with the guests and sharing all. So before we wrap up, CJ, do you have any words to the community?
Yeah, I think for the community and also our guests as well, I think it's awesome that, for people that tune in, whether pre, post, or during AMAs, that I think today's topics were pretty fun and exciting. So I hope everyone enjoyed it as much as I did. I found it very, very interesting and covered so many verticals. So hope every AMA is like that. And for the listeners and also guests, I think I also want to add a genuine appreciation. For us, sometimes when we get excited about things, we drag a little bit over time. So big thank you to the guests for taking the time to join us.
It's fine.
Yeah,
It's
and
fine. As
being
long as the
patient.
contents are fine and also the conversation is insightful and people can learn from it, I think it's fine. Even it's over time. But I think today is that because we have two guests waiting for us, so like time ran out a little bit quick. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you to the guests for waiting patiently as well, and for listening as well. I think that's very awesome. Yeah, it shows a genuine passion in what they're doing as well, and in the industry, and of course, us as a partner. So big thanks, big appreciation to that.
Okay, so before we go, a big thank you to everyone who tuned in, and really appreciate you spend time with us. And we hope every day could enjoy today's conversation. And until next time, take care. This is SafePal. See you in July and see you in August. Bye.
Bye bye.